Namaste. Welcome to your practice. In today's session, we're going to be exploring breathing backwards, breathing into our lower back. If you've practiced with me before, you may have heard me talk about trying to keep the breath from being up high, here in the upper chest cavity, and expanding the breath downward. When we do that, we're looking for some movement in the belly, and the sides of the waist, and the lower back. And today, we're going to really focus on breathing into the lower back. Now, I promise there's going to be plenty of movement, but just a little bit of talking to set the stage to start. So you know that your lungs don't go all the way down to your hips, of course. But what does go a little bit lower is the diaphragm. As we breathe in, this diaphragm muscle pulls downward so the lungs can expand. And that downward pressure pushes out on the abdominal organs as they come forward. It presses out to the sides and the waist, and it can expand backwards into the lower back. So take a moment here. It's a little bit more difficult to feel seated, but we're just going to start to think about it in this position and then explore it as we move through our practice. Take one hand and rest it here on your chest, and take another hand and rest it on your belly. And notice as you breathe in, where do you feel that movement? If there is any movement, where do you notice it? If you've practiced with me before, if you're very familiar with this work, you may already feel minimal effort up here. So not a lot of movement around the neck and shoulders, and a little bit more down here in the belly. Now let's slide the hands around to the sides of the waist. And as you inhale, see if you can feel a lateral breath. The breath goes wide into the hands. It's okay if you're having difficulty feeling it. This is a tough position for a lot of folks, so we're going to look at it in lots of different areas. We're just getting some information here. Finally, slide the hands around to your lower back so the fingers kind of wrap around the back. And just notice as you breathe in, are you able to feel any movement there at all? And we'll continue to explore this as we move through our practice today. Take another breath or two here and just be curious. Notice what there is to notice without making whatever you're doing right or wrong. Just notice. Good. Okay. From here, we're going to transition to tabletop. So come with me to hands and knees. Of course, you can always put your elbows on the floor or on blocks if you need to. If you need some cushion under your knees, just set that down for yourself. And now we're going to move through some rounds of cat and cow. So as you drop your belly down and the heart rolls forward and the gaze comes up, notice. And then as you round your back and drop your chin toward the chest, notice whatever there is to notice. Typically, when we are taught cat and cow, we put the breath with it in a really specific way. So it usually works like this. As we drop the belly down, we breathe in. And as we round the back, we breathe out. I'm going to ask you to try reversing that today. So as you breathe in, round your back. Feel the back of your ribs, the back of your lungs expanding upwards. As you breathe out, drop the belly down. Breathing in, imagine that your lower back, your mid-back fill with air. And as you breathe out, the belly drops down again. Let's take one or two more breaths like this. I know for some of you, this is going to feel really backwards and awkward. That's okay. See if you can just let it feel that way. And then from here, let's drop the hips back toward the heels towards child's pose. Now, if you're not able to get into child's pose for any reason, that's fine. What I'm after here is a rounded position. So you could stay a little taller and just round your back and drop back as far as you feel comfortable. If you are coming back with me to child's pose, try it with the knees a little closer together if that feels okay. And then you can support your head on your hands or do whatever you need to do. I'm just going to let my head hang so that I'm able to speak a little more clearly to you. Now, as we breathe in here, if we're compressing the belly, and my belly's compressed against my legs a bit, there's not as much space for expansion downward into the, or outward with my belly button. So see if you can notice, where does the breath go? Where's the expansion go? So you breathe in. Can you breathe into your lower back a little bit more? Now, if you're able to take one hand and kind of lay it across the back or put it on the back, let's try it with the left hand. See if you're better able to feel that sense of expansion here. And I want to just add a little caveat. Although I'm talking about breathing into a particular area, the breath only goes one place, and that's the lungs. But what we're sensing is a feeling of expansion as we increase pressure in that area through movement of the diaphragm. So we're asking the diaphragm here to move backward a little more than forward so that we feel that movement in the lower back. Yeah? It's okay if you're not really feeling it in your body yet. We're just exploring. Let's make our way to downward facing dog from here. In your downward dog, fingers spread wide, knees a little bent. Shake your head yes and no. Shake out your legs a little bit. And then we're going to start to find some movement from here. Let's step the right foot forward to the front of the mat. I'm going to be up on my fingertips here. If you need more room, of course, you can use blocks or you can have both hands on the inside. I just forgot to put my blocks on my mat, so I'm going to show without it here. Now, as you inhale, imagine that your back puffs up here. And as you exhale, let the legs straighten a little bit more. As you inhale, the front knee bends and we puff up the lower back. As you exhale, we straighten the leg and move backward a little. So let's play with that. Inhaling, expanding the lower back as you move forward. Exhaling, straightening the leg a bit more as you move back. We're going to try a different pattern with the other leg. So just notice, just explore. And if all you're able to notice is like your hamstrings or your hips are stretching, that's a really good thing to notice too. Now the next time that your leg is bent, let's pause right there. And then step right foot back to the left and come into downward facing dog. Now we'll come to the second side. Step your left foot forward. Your fingers might frame the front foot, or you might have both hands on the inside of the leg. So previously, we inhaled as we moved forward and exhaled as we moved back. Now we're going to do it a little bit differently. As you straighten your left leg, inhale into the lower back. And exhale as you move forward. Inhaling, the leg straightens. Exhale, the leg bends. Let's try 2 or 3 more of those. You might find one pattern works better for you than another. Good. Hands down to the mat. Step your left foot back to the right, and we're back in our downward facing dog. Now from downward facing dog, let's start to walk the feet toward the hands. If you get stuck, walk your hands back towards your feet. Step the feet a little wide and let yourself dangle between the 2 legs. Knees can be bent. My arms are just hanging here. My head's just hanging. Take a couple of breaths here. In this position, the spine naturally wants to round, and we don't need to fight it. If it's okay, see if you can take your hands to your lower back and inhale into the hands here. Now, I'm breathing in a little bit of an exaggerated way so you can kind of hear it on camera, on my microphone. But we don't need to make noise with this. So see if you can let the breath just be natural and quiet without bringing in any of that ujjayi quality. If you know what that is. If you don't, then don't worry about it. We'll take one more breath in our standing forward fold. And then hands come to the hips, little bend in the knees, rise up to stand. Okay, moving to the front of the mat if you're not there already. Take a moment and move your head and your neck around a little bit. Roll your shoulders up and back and down. Turn and look over one shoulder. Turn and look over the other shoulder, and then do that another time or 2 so the whole body starts to coordinate its movements again. We've been so hyper-focused, or I have anyway, on this one part of our body. Now let's see if we can put it together a little bit more. Take your arms overhead as you reach for the ceiling. Feel your feet pressing into the floor. And now fold forward. Pause here. See if you can find that breath into the lower back. And then on the exhale, we're going to step that right foot back and come into a high lunge. Back knee a little bit bent. Let your shoulders fall away from the ears. Hands are on the hips. And now we're just going to take a few breaths right here. As you inhale, drop your right knee a little bit more toward the floor. As you exhale, straighten it. Let's do that a few more times. Inhale, knee bends. Exhale, straightens. If you want to play with the breath here, hands come to the lower back. Inhale. Breathe into the lower back. And now exhale. Let the legs straighten a bit more. So subtle movement with the knee, but I certainly feel the stretch and the work in that back leg, and I'm also conscious of what I'm trying to do with the breath. Good. Let's take the arms overhead, release that effort, and now the hands come down. We're stepping back to plank pose and lowering the knees to the floor. Let's take 3 rounds of that cat and cow. Inhale, balloon and dome your upper back. Exhale, drop the belly down toward the floor. Inhale. Imagine that the breath inflates and broadens the lower back like there's helium in there. Exhale, drop it down. See if you can keep your neck and shoulders pretty relaxed here. And then move it back to downward facing dog from there. Okay. Now tuck in my microphone cord and we'll move on. Step your right foot forward to the front of the mat. As always, if it gets stuck, just pick it up and put it where you want it. And then we'll rise back up to that high lunge again. You can always do the same work in a low lunge if you'd prefer. You can also make it warrior one if that's better for you, and then you just wouldn't bend and straighten that back knee. Hands come to the lower back if you like. And now as you inhale, bend the knee, exhale. Straighten it. See if you can use the inhale to fill the hands with the pressure from your back. And on the exhale, I'm kind of holding it there. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. Take 2 more of these so that I really feel the tissue in the back of my hands gently pressing into the hands. Arms reach overhead from here. And now fingertips come down to the floor and we're going to step forward. Slide your fingers halfway up the legs. Inflate the back of the body with your breath. And then as you exhale, let the head fall toward the floor. Inhale, stay here, inflate and widen the lower back. As you exhale, stand up. And slide the hands through the heart. Let's move on a little bit more. Take your arms overhead, and we'll fold forward here. Lift your fingers halfway up the legs, and step your left foot back. We're coming back into that lunge. This time, let's lower the left knee to the floor, and put a little more targeted work here. So both hands slide around to that lower back. We're in a pretty short lunge, so I've got kind of a 90-degree angle, my right knee over my right heel, my left hip over my left knee. And many times when we're here, I ask you to drop your tailbone and tuck under. We're going to work a little bit with that. But instead of actively engaging the abdominal muscles to do that, we're going to try to do it from the breath first. So hang out here with kind of a neutral spine. Don't try to fix anything. And then slide your hands to your lower back. As you inhale, the breath fills the lower back and expands into your hands. Good. Now as you exhale, a light engagement through the abs to kind of stay in that position. So let's do that again. Inhale. I feel myself filling up this lower cavity, pushing lightly into the hands. And as I exhale, I'm using some engagement to stay there. My glutes are working, And this front part of my belly is working just a little to hold me there. Let's take one more breath here. And then on the exhale, the hands come down to the floor. And we'll step back into downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, come forward to plank pose, lower the knees, come all the way down to the floor. Take your hands, lay them one on top of another, forehead comes on top of those, untuck the toes and take a moment to let the legs wiggle a little side to side. In this position, with the belly compressed against the floor, see if you can find that breath into the lower back. You might lay a hand across the lower back for feedback, or you might lay a blanket or a pillow there so you can feel yourself breathing into something. Now, the next time that you breathe in, hold there and pause. And then as you exhale, let it go. Slide your hands back, move toward cobra pose. Before you come up, inhale, breathe into the lower back. Now on the exhale, press yourself up, but keep that inflation through the lower back so that the tailbone is naturally long. Inhale here. Exhale back, downward facing dog. And if that was difficult, it's okay. We're just playing, right? Now, left foot comes forward, right knee down to the mat, moving into our low lunge on the second side. Slide the hands around to the lower back. Let the pelvis be kind of natural. For most of us, it's going to tilt forward slightly here, and we're going to address that with this breath in. As you inhale, lower back presses into the hands. And that naturally neutralizes the pelvis a bit. Now, as you exhale, stay there. Inhale, breathe into the hands a little more. And as you exhale, there's just this light engagement from the abdominals and the right glutes to kind of hold me in that position so that as I breathe in now, I'm naturally filling that cavity in the back, this posterior medial sternal space. Not that you needed the technical language, but that's the space back here. We're breathing into it naturally. Take one more breath. And on the exhale, fingertips come down to the floor and we step forward. Inhale here, inflate the lower back, round. Exhale, stand up. Hands come through the heart. All right. Inhale here, a little bend in the knees. Exhale as you stay here. So now some of us can start to explore this natural pelvic tilt that we do with the breath. So hands to the lower back as you inhale. Can you breathe just a little bit into the lower back and feel how for some of us that's going to take us out of this big pelvic tilt. It's going to take away some of this big lumbar curve we have and make the pelvis just a little more neutral. Again, if it's not making sense for you yet, that's okay. Just see what you notice. Let's take one more breath in here. Now on the exhale, take the arms up. As you inhale, fold forward, send the breath into the lower back. And then on the exhale, we're stepping back to downward facing dog. Step your right foot forward, please. Come into warrior two from here. Now in warrior two, just a quick round of dancing warrior. Stretch the right arm up to the sky, get long through that side of the body. Drop the right elbow toward the right knee, stretch the left arm up over the ear. Let's do that 2 more times, back and forth. Sometimes when we get really focused on these techniques, on these details, it can feel good to take a break and just move. The next time that you are in side angle pose, we'll pause there, straighten your right leg and make it a triangle instead. So top arm reaching for the sky, bottom arm supported by a block, or today I've got it on my leg. Some of you might be able to reach the floor. Now, as you breathe in here, I want to encourage you to breathe into the lower left back. Inhale, direct yourself breathing lower left back. And as you exhale, stay where that put you. Take 2 more breaths in that way, inhaling and exhaling. When we breathe into the lower left back in this way, it can help to naturally twist this rotation of the ribs, the thoracic spine toward the sky. My hips didn't move, so my hips are actually still tilted a little bit toward the floor, but now I'm naturally twisting and opening a little bit more toward the ceiling. Let's take 1 more breath here. And then on the exhale, hand comes down, step back, downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, come forward to plank pose, lower down to the belly. Before we lift up into our cobra, see if you can breathe into the lower back here. It might be tricky. This is a tricky place to do it, but just see what happens. Inhale here. See if you can keep a little bit of that as you exhale and push up into the back bend. Good. 1 more breath in here. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. When you're ready, please step your left foot forward and come into warrior 2. A few rounds of dancing warrior here. Back and forth between exalted warrior and side angle pose. Notice what it feels like just to move and not to be so focused on the breath. We want both things in our life. We want to be able to really hone in on the details and also be able just to move and enjoy our bodies sometimes. From your side angle pose, let's straighten left leg, reach the right arm up toward the sky. Find some stability and strengthen the legs here. Make any adjustments you need to. And now we're going to breathe into the lower right back. If you want some feedback there, you can place your hand. I'm sort of between the right ribs and my right hip, if you can kind of see that. As I inhale, I feel how that rotates me toward the sky a little. Inhale here. And as you exhale, hold the position. Inhale, breathe, lower right back. Exhale and stay there. 1 more time, exploring breath in this position. Exhale, lower your hand down to the floor, step back, downward facing dog. Okay, from downward facing dog, 1 more time, please step your right foot forward. Let's come back up into our warrior 2. Warrior 2, pause for a moment, feel the feet, feel the breath. For many of us, warrior 2 naturally tilts our pelvis forward into an anterior tilt, kind of like our butt sticking out a little bit. So here you might explore, what happens if I breathe into my lower back here? You might notice that changes what happens with your legs. That's okay, just notice. You take 1 more breath, holding this strong warrior 2. And then 1 more time, straighten your front leg and move back into your triangle pose. Now in triangle pose last time, I asked you to really focus on breathing into the top back rib area. So we're going to do that again, but we're going to alternate between the 2 sides. As you breathe into your lower left back, feel how that can twist you toward the sky a little. As you exhale, stay here. Now as you inhale, breathe into your lower right back and feel how that rotates you back toward the floor again. Do that a few more times as you inhale, lower left back. Feel how maybe the sternum turns a little more skyward. Exhale there. Inhale, lower right back. Feel how that might turn you downward. Next time you inhale, breathe into the lower left back and hold. Exhale, stay here. Notice if the shoulders are creeping up around the ears. Take 1 more breath. And exhale, hands down to the mat. Step back, downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, lower the knees to the floor briefly. Again, a few rounds of cat and cow. If you'd rather hold down dog or child's pose, that's great. As you inhale, breathe into the lower back. Find that space. As you exhale, let the belly drop down. 2 more times on your own. And if you want to play with some other movement, maybe bringing some circles in as you do that, go ahead. Many folks find that this type of work helps to open up a lot of space and support naturally for the lower back area, so it can feel pretty good. When you're ready from here, left foot steps forward. We come into Warrior Two one more time. Notice what there is to notice. Notice if you naturally kind of tilt forward with the front of your pelvis. See if you can breathe into that mid-lower back again here. And then move yourself into triangle. Okay, now in triangle pose, we're going to alternate breathing between the 2 sides of the lower back again. As you inhale, breathe into the lower right back. Notice if that turns you toward the sky a little bit. Stay as you exhale. Inhale into the lower left back. And feel how that rotates you more easily toward the floor. Inhale, lower right side. Exhale and stay. Inhale, lower left. Exhale, stay there. Now, the next time that you breathe in, breathe into your lower mid-right back. Turn the chest toward the sky with that and stay and breathe. Now imagine that you can breathe easily and smoothly across this band of the lower back, the mid-back. Okay, bend your front knee, hands come down to the floor. Step back to tabletop, and then from here, let's transition onto our backs. Roll down, and then pause for a moment, knees bent, pointing toward the ceiling. Check in with your shoulders, your jaw, see what there is to see. Now, if you were to gently pull your knees in towards you here, we create a little bit of compression in the belly, and we get more feedback in the lower back. Can you inhale and feel the expansion here? Or at least get a sense of what might be happening there. Good. Lower the feet to the floor. Slide your hands under your lower back. And gently inhale, breathe into the hands. Now, as you exhale, stay there. So there's a little abdominal engagement with that. Inhale, breathe again into the lower back. Exhale, stay there. One more time, inhale, breathe into the lower back. Now as you exhale, squeeze your glutes and lift up into bridge pose. As you inhale, continue this work of breathing into the lower back. It might mean you don't go as high as you normally do in bridge pose. Take 2 more breaths here, just explore. And then when you feel like you've had enough of this work for today, lower yourself all the way back down to the floor. Drop the soles of the feet together, let the knees come out to the sides. Roll your head side to side a time or 2. And we'll take 1 or 2 more moments to rest. You can have your legs in this position if it feels good, or you could straighten them for Shavasana. If you want to really continue to work with this feeling of breathing into the lower back, if that's felt good for you, have the knees bent and your lower back then more easily feels the floor under it. But if you're ready to drop the technique, just drop the technique and let your body breathe. When we change a pattern that's been held in our body for some time, it can feel uncomfortable. It can even feel a little alarming. So it's really important to go slow and be easy with yourself. If it's frustrating, notice that it's frustrating and back off where you need to. It's normal to be frustrated when we encounter something new. Scan through your forehead, your cheeks, your jaw, your neck. Notice if there's anything there that's feeling a little grippy or tense, and just invite it to fall away with the breath. We'll take 1 or 2 more breaths here. If you have longer, if you're able to stay longer, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, it's time to move on. Pull your knees towards you, or just roll over to one side or another and come back up to the seat. We began our practice seated, and I invited you to notice the breath on the chest and the belly. So we can do that again now if you're interested. And then to notice the breath in the sides of the waist. And then to notice the breath in the lower back. Good. Whatever you find, just notice it and see if you can let it be what it is for now. Trust that you did really good work. Even if you weren't able to feel like you made any big changes, you weren't able to tell if anything was even happening, it's always good work to be curious and to connect with the experience we're having in our body. To move the body and breathe is incredibly beneficial. If that's the baseline, you've met it, and I know that you did more. Thank you so much for taking care of yourself and being here with me. I look forward to being together again soon. Be well.